Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Calen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. Hi, Sam. How are you?
Hey, Calen. I'm really great, actually. What a good day. It's a happy Monday in October.
Oh, my goodness. Mondays, I used to kind of be a little bit dreading Mondays.
Were you a Garfield?
Well, it's just kind of like the start of the week and all that you've got mapped out, and it's like people kind of hit you hard in the first couple days, and you kind of ease into the weekend. But since we do our podcast on Mondays mornings, it's so enjoyable. It actually frames my week perfectly because I get to talk, and
Right.
I get to talk to you, and we get to have discussion, and we have such a good friendship and partnership and collaboration that it inspires me, and it gets me out, in the afternoon ready to crush it.
Yeah, it's kind of clarity on a Monday morning. For a long time, I feel the same way, by the way.
Sure.
Only because I can't think of anything unique to
exactly.
say. I just had to follow along.
Yeah.
But, I don't think I was ever a Garfield. Like, I didn't hate Mondays because I don't hate anything. But what I did find is I would have all these things that I built up in my mind about what Monday was going to start like. And because I never knew what was coming that week, I always assumed it would all start on Monday mornings. And so kind of dread getting to work and my anticipation levels of things going wrong would be higher on Monday morning. But because this is our podcast day, I know that my week is going to start off fantastic. And then there is no this is the beginning of my week, so there's no build up. So I find my driving to work on Mondays, my going to bed on Sunday nights, just a little bit easier because I know that this is a nice thoroughfare for the week. Yeah. This podcast is great for that.
Well, I think it puts us in a good mental framework too, a lot of the times. And obviously we can talk about how much we enjoy this podcast. What is our topic today? What do you want to talk about?
Well, let's talk about the people we hire, the reasons we hire them, the people we have to let go, and why it's not always bad and why it's usually good when people move on.
I think it's my experience. It is 100% good because if you're not happy with certain performance, and it's obvious they're not happy because otherwise you guys would be a lot more aligned.
Right.
Especially if you have good employment standards and practices. So you've got to have you
got to have a good base. Right?
Yeah, you got to have a good base.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could be identifying negative things in a way that the employee doesn't even know. Everybody's got to understand the rules of the game. So put the rules down there, what the expectations are, what their expectations are. Have those discussions.
Which is a really hard thing to do, actually. And, that might be a good place to start this conversation is how do you set out accountability for your employees and set out the expectations?
I think you have to have an employee handbook or employee manual. Starts there. Yep. There's a million resources online to find, sort of good practices. Look at the employment standards in the municipality that you're in or the province that you're in or state that you're in. And see what the bare minimum is, because I think nowadays everybody does have employee standards. Certain things you can't do. You've got to give severance after 3 months, that kind of stuff, which is the base. But you need to expand beyond the base.
Ooh, I know another place you could get good information about this kind of thing. The Bread and Butter Collective.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess you could go right to our Dropbox and look at your employee handbook, my employee handbook, other people's employee handbooks.
Well, and that's the beauty of our collective is that we share all that information. So if there's a new business person that's is starting their business, they don't even know. Listen, when we started, we had no clue of what we were doing.
No.
We had no, we just garnered as much as we could. We both, I took business in college, but
I took smoking dope and playing hacky sack in college.
I used to see you at Camotes and play hacky sack all the time. I loved it.
It's true.
I was like, what does that guy do? What's he taking? Is there a hacky sack 101 here?
And now we can bring up something that you can laugh at me about is I did take 7 years in post-secondary school. there's a reason for the 7-year itch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But getting back to the topic is, obviously we support our membership group, and it's all about sharing.
Yeah.
Right, because we're not threatened by each other. We want to support each other, and we also have a whole bunch of. It's not one size fits all. We've got a selection. Like your employee booked there, mine, Prima Strata's employees booked there, all that stuff, and some of them have really good information that we've added, and vice versa. So I think a good employee handbook, so that everybody knows what the rules of the game are at the start. And you put in harassment policies, you put, drug and alcohol policies, you put, what happens if you don't show up to work, and, respectful workplace, and all this stuff in there.
And all of those things, we've actually had people come into our bread and butter meetings and give talks to us about.
Yes, exactly.
It's been great. Okay, so we know the basic rules about employment, and how I hire people is I own a coffee business, and so it would feel natural to hire people who are really into coffee, but those are the people I don't hire necessarily first. Like, I don't give preference to people who are coffee experts when I'm looking for a good employee.
I think I know why.
Because then I would take too much time to reshape them into the image that I want out of them. Yes, that's true. But also, I want people to have a broader and more diverse interest, because we're in the hospitality industry. And so when our customers come in, they talk to the baristas. I think probably the last thing, maybe not the last thing, but not every customer wants to just have a conversation about coffee. What they want to have is a natural conversation, and an employee, a barista, a server at a table who has more broad interests in the world, in things, is going to have way more interesting conversations with the customers. The customers get a better experience, and the employee is always going to be more interested, because they're not just dwelling on work. They're thinking about what they're going to do after work, and they're going to think about what they're going to do on the weekends. It gives them joy, and you want joyful, happy customers. So I always hire people who have a really strong interest in something else, whether they're a DJ or an artist, or they love accounting, or whatever it is. They're in school to become a lawyer. Like, people have a passion, and if I can be the leaping off point for them, if I can give them all the tools they need to fulfill what they need to do to get happy and get to where they want to be in life, then that's what my job is there for. I know a coffee shop is an entry-level type job, and so I really look for people who want more out of life.
And I think you also leave the door open a little bit for some career positions as well. Like, I know I do.
I do, but those are specialty positions in my company for sure. If I want a barista, I'm hiring the most interesting, friendly person I can find. Yeah,
and then training them in the way that you want the job done, or what your corporate culture represents. I think the other thing about hiring interesting, diverse group of people from varied, variety of backgrounds is, again, speaking to happiness, is if they're unhappy outside of work and they don't have interest, they're going to kind of bring that unhappiness to work. I think the idea that work just needs to be like all about executing. I think it needs to be also about having fun and collaboration and laughs. And then, a happy workplace is, how much more inviting is that to customers when they come in, when you talk about the hospitality component of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, employees and employers spend the majority of their time at work, really. I mean, this is what we do. They don't say your job is what you do for nothing. It is what we do for the majority of our lives. And if you can't have fun or have a safe, comfortable environment where you're allowed to express yourself freely and be who you are and work towards a better life, I mean, a job, you shouldn't work to live. Oh, how does the expression yield?
You shouldn't work to live. You shouldn't live to work. You should work to live.
Yes, you should work to work should provide you with the vehicle. Work should be a vehicle to get you where you want to be.
Yeah.
Right. And I always find it so joyful in my heart, like to watch my employees, long term, short term, move on and move on to follow what they love. I mean, it's in my mind, it isn't ever a hardship when any employee moves on.
No, it shouldn't be.
So
sometimes
it's a joyful
timing isn't, but I also don't think there's any. You want to talk about? Have you ever let someone go that was happy? You know, like, if you know what I'm saying, like you've got to discipline them. You think they're not working out with the company, but do you think that person wants to be there? Like, truthfully, I would say no.
Right.
You know, so it's not even just that the company is not happy with the work performance. I don't think that employee is happy with their job and or the company or any of that stuff. So they're almost on the exact same level. Mm-hmm. But often when you're going to approach, I know our young managers that were like, you know, every single time this is going to work out for both the employer and the employee to move on, because otherwise you wouldn't be here to having the discussion, because both groups would be happy.
Right.
And it's not just the employer, all the employer's not happy. It's the worker's not happy too, in my experience.
Well, and they're so intricately tied together that when the employee isn't happy, how can the employer be happy? And vice versa, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's just impossible. You're in a relationship.
Yeah.
You spend every day with some of these people for years.
Yeah.
And so not only do you have a professional relationship with them, you build a personal relationship as well. And even that, once they move on, maybe that personal relationship can actually grow from there, because you're not tied into a professional relationship as well.
Well, and I think there's a lot of, I mean, I think of over the years, I mean, we've both been doing this for over 20, 25 years. You know, how many employees have either come back to work or come back to say hi or keep in touch, or, I mean, I think that is indicative of creating culturing an environment of cooperation, collaboration, and friendship.
Exactly.
Which, you know, I think everybody, even, and an extension of that is analyzing, doing a self-reflection of whether they're not happy because of what you've created, or, you know, you're not happy with what they're creating. Like, sometimes the business needs to look at themselves and go, what am I doing? Like, I always look at this, like, what is our role? Like, where have we failed? You know, if I'm looking at a structural change, especially with senior leaders, senior managers, it's like, what have I done to create this situation, or what haven't I done? Mm-hmm. And have I done enough? Do I feel like I've done enough?
So is that where an exit interview comes in handy, so that you can go through? And
I think it has to start before the exit interview, but I also think you need to do an exit interview of everybody, and just get their perspective. Usually it should be done by someone independent or independent-ish.
Oh.
Right.
That's
so
a good perspective.
You know, they're comfortable in disclosing. So we have an HR manager that we have do exit interviews.
Okay.
And I think we do all exit interviews of people that we've let go, or people that have quit and moved on. Not every single position, but, you know, the people that have been there for enough time to actually have some value in what their thoughts are. But before I even get to the point where I'm disciplining somebody, I look at, especially because we're going to move to the point of like key people in our organization and people that have been with us a long time, because we've both have had recent changes in that. And it's, is their job functional? Like, have they been given the right position for their skill set? Where's the misalignment there? Are we as an organization, you know, setting them up for success? I'll do all that analysis long before I even sit down with them to discuss, you know, like whether it be a written warning or even a verbal warning, or discuss their job. Is trying to make sure that we've given them as much success as they can to succeed. You know, and I know in this one particular position, this person did like 17 different things. So it's not really a functional job per se, because it's hard to be good at 15 different things, or even if it was 5 different things, it's really hard to be good at 5 different things. So how did we fill in the gaps where we could give support? Or maybe we need to split that job into 2, but we've had one person, you know, do a dysfunctional job.
Right. And when it's an employee who's been there for a long time, it's not that the first job that they got hired for. It's layers upon
Yes.
layers of tasks and ways of doing their job that have developed over the years, that maybe by the end of their term, you can really look at how they built those layers and look for new efficiencies, new ways of doing their same job in a new, with a new perspective. Because this person is, whether they're a manager or just an employee who's been there for a long time, they've built a way of doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, when it's time for them to leave, it's a really good time to look at how to continue that position, if it needs to be continued, if you need to fill that seat, or if the jobs that seat holds can be just absorbed by other people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it depends on also where you want to see the trajectory of your business. I know in our situation, giving more power to the actual store managers and more control, ultimately will allow your vision to translate to your staff, the front staff. Like in our organization, we have store managers and we have supervisors and we have, our regular staff. A lot of misinformation or misalignment, I guess, with values and culture is because you're not able to give the overview to the staff in the front lines who are literally, the heartbeat of your business, because they're dealing with the customers and it's that hospitality. But if you haven't properly shared that vision with the managers, how are they going to share it with the staff that are basically running your business? And having that misalignment, and then evaluating, well, maybe this other person that's sitting above, you're just adding, more complexity to it, and one more, like the missed message through the string and can.
Yes.
Where your message isn't being communicated, and you wonder why the culture is so far away from where you'd hoped it would be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think for a lot of employers, I think having a person who's been around for a long time and losing them, it can be really a frightening perspective.
Yeah.
I think that, and over the years, I've lost several people, and I've thought, years ago, wow, this person's going to take away customers when they go. They're going to take customers with them.
Yeah.
It's going to change how like the flow of things, they're indispensable.
Yeah.
And I've really realized that that's just not the case. And for all the employers out there, I want to really stress that no one is really indispensable. There's people you're going to miss and personalities you're going to miss, but your business is going to be fine without whoever that is.
Yeah.
And so a change of guard can be daunting, but I just want to put it out there for perspective, and people who own businesses who are going through something like this. It can be a real positive thing. It's like real good opportunity to look at that position, look at how you do things overall, and see if there's a way and an opportunity right now to change things to make them better.
Yeah, and also identify, perhaps at a later date. Obviously, like we recently bought a house and our plan was to renovate it, and then we're thinking, well, maybe we just need to rebuild a new house or whatever. And then I was always like, let's just live in it. And maybe we realize we don't need to do anything.
Right.
And again, when you have these big changes, live with it for 6 months. Fill in the gaps where you identify what the priorities are of what they aren't doing. And then looking at, well, what would that position be if the person we had in there had all the skills? And maybe you would need half that person, or maybe you need a quarter of that person, or maybe you can identify 5 things they do that you can spread throughout your organization. And then not only have you saved the financial impact of that, you're actually run a more efficient business, and you're undoing that stacking that happens over time. And I think as a business person, we stack stuff too. Like, I could be probably way more efficient myself. Fortunate, like, that I'm not going to fire myself. But do I think I'm doing the best job? No. If I'm honest, I'm the torchbearer, and I think I'm good at what I do, but I'm not replaceable either.
Are there efficiencies? Sure. There's efficiencies we can find in everyone's work, right?
Yeah.
Huh. I like the what you say about like just be with it for 6 months. Just live with it.
Live with
just
it.
see. Yeah.
And see if your priorities change or what you think you need to do differently is. And obviously, there's going to be a bit of a mourning process. Like I know I'm going through a mourning process, and it really happens when you get that piece of news that you would say, "Okay, you go deal with that," and then that person's not there, and you're like, "Oh no!" Well, guess what? Now I actually got to figure out what the problem is, rather than just say, "Oh, let's put the Band-Aid of this person on it." And there's a reason why that problem occurred, and maybe that person had something to do with that. Maybe they didn't, but the one thing I know for sure is I had no clue.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, it exposes and opens it up to like, okay, well, let's figure this out for once, right? And the person didn't elevate it to a discussion where there was something broken, but it's obviously broken because that person's not there and it's not working. So how do we get these people that are actually in the situation to work better and make it more functional? And it's like all of a sudden you're like, okay, well now you're making decisions that are going to actually move your business forward permanently. Rather than have these people that are just basically, I don't want to say Band-Aids, they're not Band-Aids, but they're out to put out fires. But sometimes they're also creating some fires, and you're also not paying attention to those areas where you could actually just apply some mind time and then fix it for good so that you actually don't need that. So you're actually eliminating the responsibility from some of the jobs too.
That's right. And when you
get into bad habits, I guess.
It's so easy to get into bad habits and things slip, and it's just working okay, so it's good enough, and then you build from there. And it's like all of a sudden your foundation isn't what you intended it to be, it's what whoever else has intended it to be, and that's maybe not your vision.
Well, and I think as you grow, inherently you're going to add spots in position because you just think, okay, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Or, there's enough of a job there that we can kind of create a job. But inherently, is that job efficient? Is the person doing it effective? And as you go in time, where you're looking at 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, like how can it be? Yeah. And sometimes getting a bit of a change in there is positive. But as long as you're doing it with reflection, because, you don't want to be just willy-nilly axing positions. And,
no. And I don't know. You probably have something to say about this in this day and age of like finding it hard to find employees.
Yeah.
Is it the same as it used to be where it was always a positive thing to let people go or have people move on? Is there not maybe this a bit of anxiousness, like, oh, well, where am I going to find a replacement? I mean, I don't have that problem. I'm overstaffed right now, which is great.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, would I be thinking about this differently maybe if I didn't think I could replace a person?
I would argue that you should be thinking that way, because you don't want to be creating permanency in jobs or positions just because of the fact there isn't someone to replace them. Because if it's not working, it's not working.
Yeah.
So I would spend the time trying to figure out how you could do without that position or that person. Mm-hmm. And then you strengthen the team around you. You also give an opportunity for somebody to actually step in the shoes, provided that, first take apart the position, spread it out. My guess would be that it would be done. It's definitely going to be done cheaper because you're basically just going to be building it into your current, employees that you have. But why have dysfunction? Why have a position just because it's been there for 10 years or 6 years or 5 years or 3 years, or the person? Right. Especially, it comes down to whether they're happy and effective at their job. And I think most people in those positions that are able to be just eliminated probably knew that they weren't probably being as efficient and functional as they could. And you can't blame them because obviously they've got a job to do and you're part of the team and all that stuff, but they probably don't feel real great about their contributions either.
No, and you don't want them to feel bad about what they're doing or not doing, and giving them an opportunity to move on is giving them an opportunity to feel better.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. And that's where it comes down to is every single time, and everybody, thankfully I don't have to do this that often, but maybe I'm involved in those type of decisions once every year or two, because it's a senior position or it's just somebody that needs, a more delicate approach from, the boss kind of thing,
Yeah.
then I get involved. But every single time, even in previous management jobs that I've had, and I've been the guy who's had to make those decisions, it always works out better. And
Right.
as long as you're doing it in a sympathetic way and constructive, because it's not, it's like when you break up with your partner, it's like, oh, it's not me, it's you, or it's not you, it's me, is usually what goes. But sometimes it is both.
And when it's over, it's like, oh, why didn't we do this 2 years ago?
And you're unleashing this person to the world that they can do whatever the heck they get to evaluate. A lot of people, they just do, like, people work in jobs for decades that they hate. And how limiting is that?
It's,
and
it's extreme.
And a lot of the times when you talk to people, they're like, oh man, thank goodness that happened. Mm-hmm. We let somebody go recently that, wasn't like, it was just a big misalignment. Like, they were calling in sick, they weren't showing up, they were complaining, they were just all this stuff. And then when we sat down with them, they're just like, oh, thank goodness. So for whatever reason, they didn't want to quit because they didn't want to do the work that would require to go at another job. And in this market, you can go to another job quite easily.
Walk down the street.
Yeah. So, but they were just relieved. And it's just like, we were relieved because now, we could fill the position with somebody that actually wanted to be there or, was engaged in their job. Right. So it's a win-win.
Right. Yeah. It comes down to timing sometimes. And, it's hard to nail the timing.
Yeah.
And most often, these decisions, whether they're made by the employer or by the employee to move on, are made too late.
Yeah. Oh,
and that's unfortunate because that's when there's not been enough communication, and it should have been dealt with. And there were things that built to that decision that could have been avoided. So my recommendation to everyone is to keep on top of your staff.
Hire slow, fire quickly.
Exactly.
Is an adage, but I would throw in there that you have to make sure that you've done your work. You've made sure that you've had those touch points where you could have modified employees' behaviors, had discussions of why things weren't going well.
Give all the opportunity to succeed, right?
Because you can also fire too soon too.
Yeah.
There's people that are in the organization that I know this firsthand where I would have probably let them go or was thinking, this is not quite fit. And they're all-stars now.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I'm like, had I gone with that instinct. But part of the thing where you get to the decision is that you've done the work, where you've properly analyzed where you've given them the opportunity, where you've given them the training, where you've given them materials to succeed and the environment to succeed, and then letting them do it. And in most cases, they will succeed if you provided that to them. And if they don't succeed, then they're not really engaged, and it's probably the right decision. And I think all those things can happen. And even the 3-month probation period, I don't think is long enough to really have put that work in.
No, it's a very, very superficial way of gauging who someone is and what they can be and what their potential is, right?
Yeah, but you definitely making those decisions quicker is going to move your business forward better.
Well, a guy we all know, John Reese, he always used to tell me, always be hiring, categorize your employees A, B's, and C's, and your C's you're always dropping your C's or trying to get them to be B's. B's are always trying to get to be A's, and if you can't get from a C to a B, you're gone.
Yeah, it's time to move on.
Hire more people.
And you're not letting them, it's not like you're throwing them off a cliff. They're out there to go find what they're really meant to be.
Yeah, because
some people need the motivation,
Yeah, sometimes you gotta push people out, or they have to leave forcibly, whether it's their choice or your choice, for everyone to be happy.
And the lesson there is feel the fear and do it anyways.
Yes.
No one likes change.
I know change is scary, but it's freeing as well.
Well, it's also where growth is found.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's where all the good stuff. That's where the gold is.
Yeah, that's where the gold
really. Yeah.
And engage.
Well,
I love it.
Well, I think we wrapped that one up pretty quick, didn't we? That was great.
I love it.
All right. Well, I guess we need to wrap this one up by saying that all employees are special in their own way.
Absolutely.
And we just want the best for people, and employees are people, and they're people in their community.
And just be kind.
Yeah.
And be compassionate, and do it in a way that is communicating how you're feeling, but being respectful to the impact of what you're doing. because there is big impact. So you need to make sure that you do it in a way that is compassionate. And, everybody's situation is a little bit different, but just do it with compassion.
Yeah.
And share your vision with your employees so they can get on the same page as you.
Yeah, and they're going to make a choice pretty quickly, hopefully, whether they're a right fit in your organization or not. And you've got the opportunity to make that decision for them as well.
Absolutely.
Just keep it real.
I love it, Sam.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
That was a quickie.
Quickie. We're gonna try to do a little more quickie ones because obviously some of them. Well, we vary between like 45 or 50 minutes to like we've done 2-hour ones, and I think there's a lot of topics we can cover and add some value because it's all really about sharing information. And it's not we don't have all the answers, but we have some, and we're willing to share it with anybody that wants to listen.
And I think once we get talking, we end up having more questions than answers.
Oh my God, I've got more questions than we've answered.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on about employees, but let's not. Let's talk
Save it
about
for episode 2.
Episode 2. Oh,
of our shorter version.
Teaser.
Yes.
All right. Well, Calen, you be nice, everybody.
Thanks, Sam. Enjoy. Be kind.
I certainly will. Enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Cheers, brother.
Bye.
Bye.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, 900 Degrees Wood-Fired Pizzeria, Agrius, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Brentwood Bay Village Emporium, Nourish and Charlotte the Quail, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Hoyne Brewing, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Rain Dogs, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, Taco Stand Al Pastor, Toque, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.